What's up, everybody? Welcome to Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. I'm Jonathan Beardsley.
And I'm Brandon May.
Hope you're all doing well. Before we talk about this week's playlist, let's talk about a little bit of music news. The Glastonbury lineup is now out, and it will be headlined by Dua Lipa, who also just announced today that her new album titled Radical Optimism will be out May 3rd. It'll also be headlined by Coldplay, SZA, and Shania Twain. What do you think of the headliners?
I think they're solid headliners, man. I mean, no, who can really complain, right?
Oh no, that's very solid and it covers pretty much all the bases. Maybe the rock fans will be a little salty, but yeah, man, I think SZA's gonna absolutely bring it. Dua Lipa, like I said, just announced her album. She's one of the biggest pop stars in the world, kind of deserves the spot. I think it's gonna be really well. Let's talk about some of the sub headliners though, because I think that's where a lot of the gold is at. We got Little Sims, Idols, Disclosure, Camila Cabello, The Last Dinner Party, who we'll talk about soon, Jungle, Justice, Masego, Naya Archives, Brittany Howard, Sampha, Arlo Parks, Always, Soccer Mommy, Remy Wolf, Mannequin Pussy, Peggy Gao, King Cruel, and a lot more to still be announced, man. This is easily one of the best festivals in the world when it comes to curating a lineup, and I think they delivered again. What about you?
I think they killed it, man. I think Idols and Fontaine's DC are at the top of the post punk wave in that area of the world.
Hmm.
I think even Sampha and Orbital being sub headliners. I think not Nia Archives. I think Glastonbury hit it out of the fucking park this year, man. I really do.
Yeah, dude, I agree. Did they stream the festival last year?
They typically do every year. At the very least, we get like we get full sets from Glastonbury at least once, at least some of them. Like Foo Fighters playing under a different name last year, in the middle of the day. That was tight. I've seen, like the Chemical Brothers Glastonbury sets, so I'm very interested in checking out a number of these. Specifically King Cruel, I want to see how they do. And I don't think I've ever seen a live performance of Fontaine's DC, and God, their music has so much atmosphere. It would be remiss of me not to check it out if they are indeed streaming it.
And I feel like Glastonbury, more than any other crowd, responds to their type of music, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I will definitely be trying to catch some of these. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
All right, that's all I got for music news this week. Anything else you want to touch on before we start?
No, I'm good on my end, my man.
All right, then let's dive in. First up this week, we got a new one from Justice called Incognito. I don't know if it's just because they worked with Kevin Parker on their last single, but the clean parts of the song sound very Tame Impala-esque to me. I still like it though. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on this is it sounds like a Chemical Brothers remix of a Boys Noise track, and I am 1,000% here for it. It feels like it could be the first track on their album. It's so good, man. It's clearly leading into something else also, which I
Sure.
love that they do that, like on Cross, where Phantom bleeds into another track. I forget the name of the song, but yeah, big
I
fan.
agree, man. I don't think they've released a full track list yet. You could be right. It could be the start. They did announce they will be doing at least one more single, and Miguel, the R&B singer, is doing vocals on it. I'm already very excited for that one.
Yep, that's going to be John's song of the week that week.
We'll see. All right, we got a new one from Underworld and Katama. This one's called Fen Violet. How are you feeling about it?
Man, this is fucking great. There is energy. It's just classic Underworld, even a little bit heavier than some of their other stuff, man. I'm a big fan of this song, as I'm sure you could guess.
Obviously. Yeah, it is Underworld, but it's like a heavy injection of piano house into their classic sound, and I think it really, really works. I'm a fan.
Really works, man.
New one from Adriatic and the Element MT called The Echo. We got some beautiful trance vibes just oozing off this track, man. I really liked it. What about you?
This track is such a fucking vibe, dude. The chord progressions and the way the synth line kind of like shifts its pitch as it progresses. Oh, God, such a good song.
Next up, we got one from Machine Drum and Tinashe called Zoom. I've had this one on repeat all week. Her voice over this like light drum and bass instrumental style is just incredible, man. Are you a fan too?
That's exactly what I said. I said Tinashe over drum and bass is something I didn't know I needed, but I do. Give me more.
Yeah, full album of this, please. I would not
Oh,
at
for
all be
sure.
surprised if she announced a full drum and bass album tomorrow, honestly. All right, we got the Rodriguez Jr. remix of Yankee by Dark. It's got that classic Rodriguez Jr. warmth to it, especially in those chords and keys. I already know you're a fan of it, but what are your thoughts on it?
Everything this man touches is gold.
It is.
It's
It
crazy.
is.
I love this song.
We have not heard much from him since Feathers and Bones, right?
Correct. My
Yeah, well, welcome
EDM
back to
album
the
of the year
playlist.
last year.
Welcome back to the playlist, Rodriguez Jr. All right, it's time for my song of the week, which you already fucking knew.
Hey,
It's the Maria's new track, Run Your Mouth. I've had it on repeat since it dropped. Do not plan on taking it off repeat anytime soon. It was already my most anticipated album of the year, but after hearing the first single, it has only further cemented that. I love this. What about you?
it is very rare, folks, but it does happen sometimes where John and I share a song of the week. That's happening this
Yes.
week. I'm so excited for the album now. It pumped me up.
Did you catch the music video yet?
Oh man, no, I haven't.
All right, let's put the link to that in the show notes. You need to check that out as well. Um, all right, so a few things since this album has been announced. They announced a new vinyl version of it with a like liquid sleeve, which is pretty cool. I don't think it's signed like the one that they put up for the pre-order, but it is a very cool niche product. And I believe in a either a tweet or Instagram post, they said enjoy the like dancing vibes on this one because the next few are gonna have you guys crying, something along those lines. So
Sign me the fuck
I'm
up.
I'm really, really excited for this album, man. I'm glad you are too. Shared song of the week, first time this year. Lock it in.
Lock it
All
in.
right. We got a new one from Young Miko called Kurita. And I don't know about you, man, that it just doesn't feel complete. Like it's a good song, but it feels like it ends during the bridge. It kind of fades down slowly as she's still going. She still sounds great on it, but not all there. What were your thoughts on it?
Danceable track, like you said, needed a little bit more time in the oven.
Yeah, she puts out a lot of bangers though. All right, got a new one from I think it's Lufe. The song is called Goddess. We have not talked about her yet, but my wife and I have been listening to her for a while now. We don't really cover much of this type of music on here, so I thought it'd be a nice change of pace to throw on. You're a big fan of jazz, so I figured you'd really enjoy some of her music if you hadn't heard it yet. Were you familiar with her at all?
No, I was not, but okay, number one, her voice is fucking incredible. The piano is great. I love all of the elements of this song. This week was not the week for me to hear this song, I think. And
Fair.
just me personally, I've had just a nonstop go kind of week. And this song, every time it came on, I stopped, and I really could. I only listened to it a handful of times this week because every time it came on, I was like, nope, I gotta go fast. This ain't it.
That is fair, man. I don't know about circling back to this song, but definitely circle back to her music.
I
Go
will.
through like the top five on her Spotify when you're in more of a subtle mood, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
Most definitely.
All right, let's talk about this new Drake remix of Act 2, Dated 8 by Four Bats. Four Bats is like the big new thing in underground R&B, has been for a few months now. He dropped his first track last summer and not including this remix has only put out 3 songs to date. I don't really think Drake adds much to the song, but it makes sense when the news came out after its release that Four Bats will be putting out his first EP on OVO. We'll
Hey.
cover it when it drops, but I honestly think it was smart of him to sign a one EP deal to start his career instead of ending up in a full 360 with OVO. But all that aside, he's very unique, good or bad. His voice is very unique. He's got a different take on R&B, a different pace to it. Were you a fan of that at all?
Yeah, I was. It definitely is unique, and I think individuality is missing a little bit in a lot of the R&B that has been coming out recently.
Yeah, yeah, I could see this really blowing up. He's very locked in on an aesthetic so far. we'll view it from here. I'm sure we'll be covering the EP when it
I
drops.
want to touch on that though. You mentioned something that's very interesting in the music industry, which are the 360 deals, and I'm really glad that he only signed the one EP deal,
Know
and I'm
your
also
worth.
and
Yeah.
I'm also really glad that Drake featured on the song with him I mean, clearly boosting the numbers there, right, on the stream. But I'm so curious now about deals like this where, okay, 360 deal, you'll get 20% royalties versus a one EP deal. You're only going to get five, but your exposure level is going to be massive.
Yeah.
That's an interesting facet to the music industry that has always just it's always fascinated me. So that's that good for four bats.
I think four bats is big enough also outside of America to have some more negotiating power in this case than a lot of other up and coming artists. But I also think history kind of tells itself. I'm a fan of a lot of the artists I'm about to mention, but Magic Jordan, Party Next Door, Roy Woods, a lot of these guys have not been done right necessarily by OVO. It's not that they've been mismanaged, but maybe they would have flourished a little more under different management or labels. Uh, who knows? That's a big what if. I think, like I said, this is a very smart way to start off and see if it works, see if it doesn't. But I'm glad you got to hear this guy's voice because you really
Right.
don't hear a lot of voices like this in R&B anymore. It's pretty unique.
Right. Yeah, this was good.
All right, man, we got a new one from Flow called Walk Like This. We have not heard from them since their EP last year, and it's another banger. They put out nothing but bops and bangers. I just need an album already. Were you a fan of this one?
All three of them have amazing chemistry on this song, man. The harmonies on the vocals during the back end chorus are fantastic. I like this.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm a big fan as well. Uh, Still no new album announcement, but I do think this is it. I do think we are headed that way finally. If Normani can do it, anybody can do it. All right. We got Gary Clark Jr.'s new one, Habits. How are you feeling about this one?
So Gary Clark Jr. will always hold a very special place in my heart. I've talked on the podcast before about how I discovered him. He has that sound that is just unmistakable in my opinion, man. The dude can just fucking shred live, and I'm sure that this song will also kill live. But it should have been two different songs, or at least like have a callback to the Habits chorus later in the song. I was a little confused the first time I heard it. I was stoked when I saw 9 minutes on Gary Clark Jr. I'm going to
I knew
heaven,
you were.
but it didn't live up to the artificial hype that I put on it. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be as proggy as it was when it started. I noticed around when I saw the runtime, I was like, ah, okay. And it does blossom into something beautiful, but I do agree with you that it's kind of a different song altogether by that point. I haven't really listened to a ton of Gary Clark Jr., but I will have to check out more sometime. I'm a big fan of the voice for sure.
You should check out his live album. Anybody listening who's unfamiliar with Gary Clark Jr., check out his first live album. It's a doozy. Have fun.
Anybody that recommends a live album is a good person with music to get advice from, you know? Those are the real ones. You gotta check out the live album.
Thanks, man.
That's why I do this with you. All right, we got a new one from Wilt. You're the one to blame. This is my first time hearing this group. I liked it. Good music. Her voice sounds great, but tell me where it came from.
No clue where I found Wilt, but I'm a
As is
fan.
tradition.
You know, man, I listen to a lot of music. I currently have like 14 different Bandcamp notifications from this week sitting on my phone I got to go through. But look, man, I love this song. I basically love everything about it, dude. It's self-released, which you know I also really love. This was really good, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks for throwing it on.
Absolutely.
We got a new one from Girl in Red, doing it again, baby. So I don't know about you, but I didn't like this track as much as the last single. It's not bad. I think it's got some fun instrumentation near the end for sure, but I don't know. It didn't catch me the same. What about you?
I totally agree with you, John. It's bouncy, it's fun, and it's poppy, and that's everything that we've kind of come to expect from Girl in Red, but I wish there was more edge to it. It's just too polished.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the problem with a lot of modern music. That's opening a can of worms, but I do agree with
We're
you.
going to talk about that later.
Ooh, we will. All right, we got a new one from The Warning called "Hell You Can Call It," or let me say, "Hell You Call a Dream." It's It's really, really good, solid anthemic alt rock. Feels straight out of the mid 2000s, which I love. What are your thoughts on this one, man?
Yeah, this is a band that I have like heard about, but like just barely gave a chance to. Uh, Somebody on the internet told me to listen to The Warning, so I threw, as is tradition, threw one of their albums on my listen to next playlist, and then never got to it. And I think we missed this whole rollout. I think this is the last single from an album that they're about to drop, and I liked it, man. This was really neat. I like the edge.
I kind of like that we're coming into it right when the album's about to drop. I wish
Right.
that we weren't so aware of when things were coming the minute they're announced, because it feels like an eternal wait. I'm kind of stoked that we'll just get to hear this one in full pretty soon.
I agree. I agree.
All right, man. I know the Marias was already your song of the week. The last time we had your Ghost in Glass on the playlist, it was your song of the week. This is their new track, Believe in Me. I started listening to this project a little bit closer after you gave their last track your song of the week, and I am really glad I dove in a little more because they make some great music, man. I don't see anything about a new EP coming out quite yet, but I'm really hoping for it. What are your thoughts on this one?
Inject this into my veins, John. This is an easy runner up to my song of the week. It's definitely MySpace Core, but it is done as close to perfectly as one can do it.
We have so much MySpace Core on the playlist this week
We
that this
do.
is
We sure do.
actually this is the first time the MySpace Core playlist or MySpace Core song of the week actually means something because it has competition. I'm gonna give it to this specifically because I don't know if you saw it, but on Instagram at least, one of the things they put out is like a photoshopped old MySpace profile of your Ghost in Glass, and I think that alone
Amazing.
deserves the MySpace Core playlist song of the
Amazing.
week. All right, man. We got a new one from the Devil Wears Prada called Ritual. What are your thoughts on it?
This is quite the divisive song, John.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
I played this one for my wife, and she was like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "That was the Devil Wears Prada." And she was like, "Aren't they heavier?" And I said, "Hmm." Uh, they went a little softer on this one, but not enough for me to consider it like a betrayal of their sound. It almost feels like a refreshing change of pace. I think we've been spoiled with a lot of Devil Wears Prada releases in the past couple of years. We got the Zombie 2 EP, we got Color Decay, and I gotta say, man, this was a good listen, bro. It's definitely got that poppy Bad Omens like lean, but it hasn't fully stepped. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I feel like a lot of people are going to overreact to subtle changes in sound when a band is putting out music pretty frequently. I'm pretty neutral on this one. I thought it was all right. Definitely did not hate it. It doesn't hit like anything on Color Decay did, but I don't think it's meant to. Like you said, this is kind of them dabbling in what would you say, that Bad Omens like formula.
Yeah.
Maybe they're working on it. Maybe we'll get more of it. Maybe we won't. But I could see it growing on me. I definitely didn't dislike it. I know why it's so divisive coming off of Color Decay, though.
Right. I mean, the banger of an album. And like I said, we got the Zombie 2 EP right before that, which was heavy as all hell.
Yeah,
But look, man, I'm not. One of the reasons why I hate Bring Me the Horizon for doing what they did is that they fully switched and then never really went back. They kind of dabble in their old sound, but they never really went back. When a band puts out a softer album and then kind of goes back to their older sound, they're putting out music that are good breaks for their live shows, in my opinion. Everybody in the pit kind of calms down a little bit, even though the song is raucous as it is. I'm very curious. I'm very curious how well received a full project of this sound will be received by the general metalcore public. Probably poorly. Judging by this song, though, I'll probably like it.
I'm with you, man. Well said. All right, we got a new one from CU Space Cowboy called Silhouettes in Motion. Really, really loved this one, man. I'm still pretty new to their stuff, but whatever I've heard so far, I've really liked. The breakdowns in this one were very fun, very, very much a throwback. What do you think of it, though?
It's like Every Time I Die and See You Next Tuesday had a baby. I say this in the most
I knew
endearing way
you'd
that I
nail it.
can.
Yeah, I knew you'd nail it.
I've heard a
That's
lot about this band. I've never given them a chance, and I'm thank you for throwing this on. You said you were throwing it on Thursday night,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, fun! I get to be forced to listen to them, and turns out I really like it.
Yeah, turns out our own stubbornness kind of prevents us from listening to music we might enjoy
Right,
sometimes. Isn't
exactly,
that funny? Well, 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 if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. All
exactly.
right. All right, we got a new one from My Hands to War called Abolish the Fact. How are you feeling about it?
Bro, we've got twinkles, we've got breakdowns, we've got varied harsh vocals, we've got gang vocals, we've got a catchy chorus. This is honestly fantastic, bro.
Yeah, it's really good. I love how off the cuff it feels too. Like it goes in so many directions, but they managed to keep it on the rails. We will definitely be covering more of them.
Most definitely.
All right, last single this week is from Dark Tranquillity. It's called The Last Imagination. How are you feeling about it?
All right, man. Have you ever dived into Dark Tranquillity at all? You familiar
No,
with
I don't
them?
believe so.
Got it. They are melodic death metal legends. The riffs are good on this one, and the piano adds like a really soft layer to this track as well. I'm interested to see how the whole album sounds. One thing that haunts some of the 90s melodic death metal bands is the leaning into the melodic rather than the death side of their sound. I'm very interested to see how this one turns out. I liked it, but it was quite soft for a death metal song. What do you think?
Interesting. I don't think tonally I was put off by it, but it didn't really do it for me. It just felt too simple. Like it's really technically proficient. It's just really predictable at the same time.
For sure, for sure.
I will definitely be open-minded to checking out a new album of theirs, though.
Yep, yep.
All right, you ready to talk about some EPs? We got a couple this week.
I am.
All right, this first one is from, is it RAC or is it RAC? Do you have any idea?
No, I it interchanges with me.
All right, we're going to say RAC. The EP is called Hyper. What are your thoughts on it?
So I've actually been a fan of RAC/rack for a while now. I think my wife and I saw them at Coachella 2014 or something like that. So like close to 10 years, maybe 2015. I don't know. This is an interesting release from them. As they kind of have a little bit of a different sound from their previous releases. There's like slight elements of hyperpop being apparent here, and for an EP called Hyper, that's expected. I liked it. It's not my favorite RAC release, but it's subdued and synthy, and I think it's well put together. What did you think about it?
I had no idea what to expect from it, but I really enjoyed all of the indie electronica vibes it had, man. I thought the whole EP was solid, but Ether was probably my favorite track on it.
It's yeah, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I really like the cover artwork on it too.
Oh
All right,
yeah.
we got one more EP this week to talk about. It's the new one from Too Close to Touch called For Keeps. When this project was announced, I didn't know they'd be giving us so many tracks. I figured they had a few tracks on the cutting room floor over the years, but this is more than I could have asked for. Once again, it was great hearing Keaton's voice again. Hopefully, this release lets more people discover an artist and a band that we kind of ended up losing too soon. They're very underrated, and there's some absolute bangers on here. And I love the contributions from like The Word Alive, Bad Omens, and such. What were your thoughts on it, man? Did you like this one?
Yeah, man. You know, I'm not the hugest fan of overproduced clean vocals, but I actually think it works really well for this vocalist. The Bad Omens feature, like you said, is done really well. I'm glad they opened with it because it kind of left room for Too Close to Touch to kind of breathe into their own music. Tracks like Disappear and Hurt Reynolds just kept me coming back here. It's like poppy metalcore, and I enjoyed it, dude. I wouldn't necessarily call Too Close to Touch underrated. I would say underknown.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. It is weird to be at this point in their career. I do wonder if they're going to continue on under a different name, if this was kind of a goodbye to the project, but we'll see. They're very talented individuals.
Speaking of metalcore new projects, Alex Vartskas from Atreyu, who recently is no longer in that band, started a new band that just released an EP that I think we should cover next week.
Definitely, man. Throw it on.
I will.
All right. Are you ready to talk about some albums?
I am, sir.
First up, we got the new one from Ariana Grande, Eternal Sunshine. So I have gone from not really liking this album to liking it to now loving it. I think it took me a while to come around on it because it's not exactly what I was expecting based on the lead single. I'm not mad at that. Of course, I'm not going to be mad that it's still full of a bunch of classic pop and R&B. I'm a huge fan of that sound. Anybody that's ever listened to the podcast knows that. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't expecting a little more dance based on the sound of Yes and. The album starts a little slow. I still think it ends a little slow as well. But when it's firing on all cylinders, like it is from Eternal Sunshine, the title track, through We Can't Be Friends, I think it's a nice reminder of why I'm a fan of hers in the first place. She's become somewhat of a villain in pop culture over the past year or so, but putting out undeniable bops like this kind of makes it hard to hate her. Like, I am very sorry to SpongeBob's ex-wife, but also this album is really good, and I somehow left it feeling more empathetic for Ari, which is crazy considering the circumstance, but none of that matters. For us, it comes down to the music, and I've come around to thinking the music on this one is great. I'm going to give it an 8 for now. Who knows what I'll feel tomorrow? True Story is my standout because are you fucking kidding me, man? That track is incredible. I imagine you're going to feel a little differently about this album, though. So please give me your thoughts.
I do. That's not a surprise.
No,
Ariana Grande has never really grabbed me with her music. It's always been there and it's always been good, I guess. It's just never been something I've been able to like resonate with. This
hmm
album is quite obviously no exception. Obviously, this album is very well produced. She sounds fantastic on every track. There's really not even a moment where she doesn't sound good, and that was also, for me at least, to be expected. There are
very
parts though
polished.
where she truly shines through with her vocals, like on True Story, those high notes, what? And on We Can't Be Friends, the softer areas of this track are where she really shines here. She's clearly a very talented vocalist. Maybe her music just isn't for me, but it didn't resonate with me on a personal level. On a musical level, it's fine. Passively listening, it was good and like really inoffensive. Actively listening, it was good and kind of inoffensive. It's a traditional pop album with most of the tropes that is kind of abound in that genre. I loved a few moments on this record and I liked it more than I disliked it, but I'm going to give her a 5, which I actually was anticipating giving her a lower score. But Yes and is a great song, but my standout is True Story. Like you said, I wish there
Of
was more
course.
dance, but True Story, just her vocals blew me away, man.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You sound like me after my second listen. We'll see where you end up like in a few
What
months
I
from
will
now.
say is that I watched her Saturday Night Live performance before I
Yeah,
listened to the album, and so I
sure.
heard a couple of these tracks for the first time live, and she honestly put on a an incredible performance on SNL. Like it really is great. One of the better performances over the last season, and I was really intrigued. I was like, all right, we'll see.
Yeah, I think well, clearly she's as good of a showman as she is a vocalist, and that always shines through when she's on camera in those situations. I don't know, man. This one is going to be a little bit divisive. I think in terms you're saying it's very polished, and I obviously it's a mainstream pop album. There was probably hundreds of hands on this thing, even though it
Yeah,
feels kind of haphazardly thrown together or a little bit undercooked, but like purposely so, kind of in the same way Thank You Next just quote unquote came together, Like
yeah,
I
sure.
it's
Oh
very
yeah.
much, but I do think coming off of a record as polished as Positions was, I was kind of expecting more of that. It is a slight change, but we'll see if it's for the better in the long run.
We'll see. I'm not gonna. I may revisit it again if I get in the mood.
All right, man. Let's move on to this new one from the last dinner party called Prelude to Ecstasy. I started listening to this band a few months ago and I have just been really enjoying their sound. Nothing Matters has become a pretty big hit, as it should be, but this whole album I thought was worth checking out. That three-song run of Burn Alive, Caesar on a TV Screen, and The Feminine Urge is fucking great. Really made me a fan, or at least cemented me one after hearing Nothing Matters. And as far as debut albums go, I think this is just pretty great, man. I have it between a 7 and an 8. My standout is Burn Alive. but I am dying to know your thoughts on this one.
All right, John. There's been quite a lot of buzz about this band in the music world. Not so much about the music, but more about the band and indie rock musicians and their entire financial backgrounds as a whole. I read a little bit of it, but I honestly I gave none of that any mind.
Industry plant rumors?
More so, oh, indie rock musician getting wildly popular. They must have gone to boarding school. Oh wait, they did, but none of that fucking matters to me. Like Julian Casablancas' dad was mega rich, and so was Albert Hammond Jr.'s father. Albert Hammond, the famous musician. But
Let the girls have fun.
right, exactly. Like what I'm trying to say is that even though there was so much buzz around this band, none of that really matters here. Going into this album, I wasn't really sure what to expect besides, well, indie rock. That's what I got. It's a solid indie rock record that pushes almost no boundaries and takes influence from all of the most successful bands of the 2010s and flips it around a little bit. I'm not mad at that at all, man. I enjoyed this.
Same.
The classical elements are really nice, opening with an orchestra on the title track, the flute or clarinet and piano on Beautiful Boy. The way a
Hmm.
lot of the tracks just kind of like devolve into orchestral sounds is like really neat, man. Lots of neck scrapes and guitar mixed into the background to let the vocals shine through is a really pop music thing for a band to do. But I do like the mix on the bass throughout this album. Uh,
Same.
I love the non-English on Gjuha, Gjuha. I couldn't tell you what language it is, but it's fucking neat. I love the choral harmonies on this with like the Mediterranean guitar sounds and how it like bleeds right into Sinner, which to me is one of the strongest tracks on the album. And for all of the elements I like, it's got a killer bass line. It's got the guitars way more up front in the mix than any of the tracks, and also has it as like the main focus rather than anything else. I really wish they had like a whole album of tracks that sound like Sinner or My Lady of Mercy, because My Lady of Mercy has like almost a Queens of the Stone Age sound to it. I fucking loved it, bro, and it like carries on the things I loved about Sinner.
Center's a banger.
I love closers that bring everything we've heard in an album kind of like to a head. I think they did this very well with Mirror. Overall, man, I really liked quite a few moments on this record, and I think they'll have a fantastic Coachella set and Glastonbury set now. I wrote this before they were announced for that. There are a few moments that I really think didn't work as well as maybe they wanted them to, but I think but 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 I think everything here worked for them, if that makes sense. It's a 7 for me, man. Sinner is a fucking banger. That's my standout, easy. And I heard no singles for this, so I don't know if you heard the singles as they were coming out, maybe. But Sinner is, to me, the best song on the album, hands down.
I had only heard Nothing Matters before hearing the
Got it.
album in full. Sinner was a single, and I believe like one of the second most popular songs on the album. So it's not a surprise you're gravitating towards it. And I
There it
agree, it's
is.
an absolute ripper of a track. I'm glad you liked the album too, man. I thought it was really interesting and kind of one I'm bummed we missed when it dropped like a month ago. So I'm glad we got around to it.
Yeah, me too, man. I heard a lot of buzz about it like a month ago, and I figured that like maybe we'd get to it, so maybe I didn't need to listen to it right away. And I'm honestly glad that I didn't. I'm glad I didn't engage in any of the bullshit negativity that was surrounding this band because honestly, this album's fucking good. I don't care what boarding school they went to. I don't care how rich their parents are. They fucking killed this. There's maybe it's a little too polished for an indie rock debut, but who the fuck cares, man?
People be stupid. All right, man. All right, we got a new one from Allie X, Girl with No Face. So this one was recommended to me a few times. I finally gave it a listen, and I felt like you had to hear it. It's just really well made electro pop. Her voice grabs hold of you from the opening track and almost never lets you go until the album is over. Even though I took notes, I don't really remember a lot of my specific thoughts on individual songs, mostly because the only song I really want to talk about is Off With Her Tits, which I feel like is an album in itself. It's so bizarre, so brazen, but absolutely works, man. And kind of how most of this album goes, dude. It's bizarre, but it just works. And I have it between like a 6 and a 7. Off with Her Tits is clearly my standout. I loved that one, but John and Jonathan was great. Weird World's great. I really liked this album. What were your thoughts on it?
Of course, you'd like the song Jon and Jonathan.
Of
Um,
course.
what a weird one, John. I don't think we covered any of the rollout. You confirmed that while you were talking about it. It's like, dude, this album is so much fun. It's like somebody got their hands on like the stems for an unfinished and unreleased album from 1985 and decided to put like modern bass and modern vocal inflections over like existing instrumentals.
Yep.
Allie X is all over this album, both obviously vocals, but also production. I went through the credits on every track. Her hands are in the production for every track, and you can color me a fan, man. This was incredibly engaging. It was an absolute blast to listen to, and like a breeze to get through, man. I loved my time with this, man. Easy
Yeah,
seven. Off with Her Tits is just incredible and is also my standout. I
of
I
course.
just I love that song, man.
It's such a fucking good song. We will definitely be covering more of her going forward. All right, we got a new one from Galleons, Valiant Violent Delights. I'm sorry. Please give me your thoughts on it.
Alrighty, so I was, as is tradition for me, looking for new post-hardcore stuff through the internet. I saw this album recommended by fans of the genre in a number of different forums as one of the best released in 2024. I threw it on this playlist blind. I had not listened to it before I threw it on. This is unique. Uh, the clean vocalist's operatic delivery on most of these tracks is to me pretty different. The harsh vocals sound great and I think fit well with a lot of the instrumentals. What throws me for a loop here, John, is on this record, there's like the instrumental work is just, it's odd to me. It's got so many elements that I love, right? It's got the synth work, it's got the glittery guitars, it's got double bass drumming. For some reason it like doesn't click with me in a way that it may be clicking for others. Maybe I'm crazy. The synth and like the glittery guitar work kind of adds like a softening element to the music, which when paired with the harsher vocals and like that double bass kind of confuses my brain. It might not even be the instrumentals throwing me off. Maybe it's the mix. Like maybe it's mixed very similarly to like the Last Dinner Party's record and like most of it, except for like Sinner in the back half. But like where the guitars are like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's mixed differently. And what's weird is that I love music like this where there's clean vocals and there's harsh vocals. I mean, you can trace me back all the way to Chiodos All's Well That Ends Well, and I all of the elements from that album are elements that exist on this album, but it's just
Yep.
mixed a little differently, right?
Mhm.
All of that being said, man, I did enjoy the album. I enjoyed it more than it confused me. Maybe I need more time with it. Maybe it needs more time in my oven, right? Maybe not. Maybe it's just, I don't know, man. It's a 6 to 7 for me. I haven't quite made up my mind on this, but both Blue Lagoon and Russian Roulette stood out to me as tracks that I really enjoyed. I'm dying to know what you thought though, because I couldn't make up my fucking mind about this album, bro.
I mean, you said Chiodos. Craig Owens himself is on Dungeon Dweller.
This is
Uh,
true.
I think you're overthinking it a little bit, man. It is an album that has a song called the Downtown Dinosaur Gang Part 3 on it. I do think you laid it on the right score, though, man. You know I love me some post-hardcore. I don't know if we've covered this band or not, but I went into this as if we hadn't, and I had a really good time. I had a feeling they were from Australia, one, because almost every band you add is from Australia, and two, because the first band that came to mind
I
when I
had no
hit play
idea.
on this was early 2010s Hands Like Houses stuff.
Hey.
And I really love the way they incorporate the electronic elements into their sound. We know how slippery this slope can be when bands get too cute with the electronics, but I think that everything on this album feels intentional and pretty well placed. It does feel a little repetitive tonally as it goes on, and some of the lyrics are a little too cheese for me. But as a whole, I enjoyed this album a lot more than I didn't, and I look forward to covering more of them going forward. I also have it between a 6 and a 7, like I said. My standout is the opener, You Who Swallowed a Falling Star.
Maybe I am overthinking it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
It's just a pretty fun, straightforward post-hardcore element or
Okay,
album, man.
I believe you.
But that said, we do listen to these albums over and over and over all week. We're going to overthink them every time.
Yeah, right.
All right, man. Talk to me about this one from Apogean, I think is the band name. The album is called Cyberstrictive. What are your
Ap-
thoughts on it?
Apogean. I don't know how to pronounce this band, but I'm going to take you back, John. I'm going to take you
Take
back
me
to
back.
2007 when the first time I heard The Faceless. I don't know if you're familiar with this band, but I was
Of course, I'm
browsing
familiar.
MySpace top eights from bands that I loved. And through this rabbit hole, I stumbled upon, at the time, what was some of the craziest and most technical music I'd ever heard. I was already into like Opeth, but like and while prog was enticing, I didn't quite understand it or appreciate it as much as I do now. Technical death metal became something that I listened to on the regular, and I'll never forget sitting at the family computer in the living room, because that was a thing in the early 2000s, and headphones on, trying to find bands that I love to search on SoulSeek or LimeWire to see what I can find. Uh, Listening to this album for the first time took me back to that moment, man. There's elements of Apogean's music that just fill the fucking room with atmosphere. There's like folksy parts, there's like sweeps, and there's building in their music, and then they kind of then they lay you on a soft pillow, and then they take it away, and it's a bed of nails. I love the prog elements here. I love the technicality. Tracks like Imposter Reborn come right out the gate and just smack you in the face, and then break it down with like super ultra melodic elements, which is something I'm a big fan of in metal lately.
Yes, you are.
I love the varied vocals on this. There are a ton of different styles and influences at play here. I could not get enough of this album this week. What a fucking banger of a debut album. I haven't dived into the lyrics quite yet, as this week's been pretty busy for me, but holy cow, man, I really love this album, dude. It's an 8 for me. Spinthariscope is my standout, which apparently is a older device used to detect radiation levels, which I'm wildly interested in the lyrics of this song, but I haven't looked them up. What did
Of
you
course
think
you are.
about Cyberstrictive?
I'm glad you loved it. Unfortunately, I did not love this album quite as much as you. I think for the most part, this album just really isn't my thing. Like, I am a big fan of the super technical instrumentals and the grooves they snap into on tracks like Thousand Yard Glare, undeniable. But their sound as a whole is just a little too muddy for me. It could be the vocals, could be the mix. Something about it just didn't fully click with me right away. It could also be that we've been getting so many great metal albums this year that my expectations aren't anywhere they should be. Not everything is going to be Orbital Gate or Job for a Cowboy or Darkest Hour, but for me, that's where the bar is right now. It sounds like for you, this one lived up to that bar. For me, it just did not quite. As far as the album goes, though, not bad, but not for me. I have it between a 5 and a 6. Take that with a grain of salt, though. My standout is Thousand Yard Glare.
I we've had a lot. We've had quite a few good like good metal albums this year already. So I get that your bar is high.
Yes, yes. That's all. All right, man, that does it for our albums this week. Holy shit, man, there is so much dropping tonight. We got new projects from Comeback Kid, Dragon Force,
Oh my
Fortet,
god.
Justin Timberlake, Casey Musgraves, Rez, Sweet Pill, Tierra Whack, While She Sleeps, Zoo. I have no idea who else, but I'm sure there's more. Uh,
Yikes.
Tune in next week to see which of those artists we'll be covering. You can find out soon by following along with the playlist and the link in the show notes. We'll be updating that one pretty shortly after this episode goes up. You can find us online at Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's Face Pod. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.